Well, we made it. We have finally made it through months of just basically football, and we're finally back to full-on NASCAR season. No non-point exhibition races, no replays of races we love from the past, just pure live 2025 racing. And today I want to talk about everything you need to know about the 2025 Daytona 500. There's so much going on coming into this season, but this race in particular has, I think, some of the coolest and some of the most fun storylines. Let's start out with the drivers. Of course, the 40-car field, or as we'll talk about later, maybe more than 40-car field, we'll have 36 chartered entries entered in. Now, there have been big moves in free agency. I'm not going to dive completely into that this time because we have done so in a separate video as well as on NWP on my channel about a week and a half ago. So I will put something up in the corner for that. But just know, as it has been since 2015-16 range, we'll have 36 chartered spots. Then there are 4 or more open spots. Let's go through these drivers. The 01 of Corey LaJoie. This is a partnership with Rick Ware Racing, and LaJoie is looking to just qualify for a race first. This is the first time he's been part-time in the Cup Series after years of being full-time, especially with Spire. But after a less than inspiring season, he will now have to basically just patchwork a season together with whatever teams and money he can get. Now, speaking of money, that is what has been funding JR Motorsports' first Cup Series entry with the number 40 car of Justin Allgaier. This is a partnership of superstars, with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his sister Kelly partnering up with Chris Stapleton, the famous country singer, and putting his whiskey Travelers on the car. Allgaier will take a Hendrick-powered car that will be the first Cup start again for JRM to Daytona, and this is a car that could easily qualify in just off of speed on Wednesday night. Gotta remember, qualifying now is on Wednesday nights. The number 40 is for Travelers Whiskey's number 40 blend that they are introducing. And if you want to think of something to kind of connect it, think of RCR having the 07 in the font and style it did for the Jack Daniels car. It's practically the same thing that JRM is doing. Of course, then you got the 44 of JJ Yaley driving for NY Racing. I'm going to be honest, as much as it would be nice to see Yaley make it, he's probably going to be in the slowest Cup car in the field, and unless a bunch of people crash out, it's highly unlikely he makes the show. But somebody else who might make the show with better odds is the 56 of Martin Truex Jr., returning to the number that he raced at MWR back when he jumped over there in 2010. Crew Chief Cole Pearn, the same one from the 2017 title season, and a time when Truex was one of the best drivers in NASCAR, will be back atop the box. This is just another shot for the Daytona 500 for Truex, and he has basically been in every single one in one way or another since 2005. He has retired from full-time driving after the 2024 season, but is coming back part-time, both to trophy hunt as well as probably help different teams that are on the Toyota side in getting information. The 62 will be driven by Anthony Alfredo this year, back with Beard again. This is a super speedway merchant team. Whether it be Brennan Gaughan, Noah Gragson, Anthony Alfredo, or others, this team has been a solid one in making the Daytona 500, races at Talladega and Atlanta, and as well as just being in the field one way or another. Gotta say, the resilience is inspiring. The 66 will be driven by Chandler Smith, who joins up with MBM. This team is not probably going to be one that's going to be quick by any means, but it's been in the headlines in the offseason leading up. It was originally going to be entered with Mike Wallace as the driver, but NASCAR denied his entry due to having no oval starts in around a decade. Wallace also was not exactly young, and NASCAR's given him an on-ramp to try and go for the Great American Race next year, but there's no news yet of if that'll happen. So for now, it is Chandler Smith. BJ McLeod runs a 78 car, a self-run Live Fast entry, and one that, as of this recording at least, is not sponsored. He did run fast in the 2024 duels and at Talladega, so this team might be a solid underdog pick if they make the race. The 84 once more will be driven by Jimmie Johnson. The 7-time champion clings on to his NASCAR career well past his prime. Now, though, he is only running 2 races, this one and the Coke 600. If Jimmie misses the Daytona 500, it will be a real question mark as to if that 600 start will be his last, as Charlotte was the place he once owned, and if he is getting outraced by guys who in many aspects might not even be on the caliber of driver now that Jimmie is, there are serious questions as to if he should keep going. And then the 91 of Helio Castroneves, the INDYCAR star, the great driver of the Indy 500, one of the best drivers possibly in American racing history, will be driving the Trackhouse Project 91 Chevrolet. The team does have an option though, so he is one way or another going to be locked into this race, either by making it on qualifying speed, the duels themselves, or the new open exemption provisional or OEP rule, which could add him as a 41st entry to the 500. Now, this can be applied if he isn't qualifying off of speed or in the duels. And if it does apply, it is noted that the team will not score any points or money from it. It is more or less a provisional to get NASCAR stars from all across forms of racing, whether that be open wheel or anything else that applies. It's important also to note that MTJ and Jimmie Johnson both could have applied for this as well, and it's basically NASCAR's way of saying, hey, we just need anyone with a name to jump on in. And it only applies to any high-level driver, regardless of the form of racing they're in. Castroneves will be one of the biggest storylines to watch because of all of these reasons heading into Speed Week. Well, speaking of storylines, what are some other big ones? Well, to start off with, there is Kyle Busch. Busch is on a nearly 50-race winless streak heading into the 2025 season, and many expected him to run well at the Clash, as Bowman Gray was very similar to the quarter-mile track we had in Los Angeles, but he didn't. And it's not exactly been the greatest bed of roses when it comes to Richard Childress and Busch. This is very, very realistically the last year that he will be in the 8 at RCR. Could it be a memorable one? Well, in his 20th attempt at the Daytona 500, it would be, I think, karmically ironic if he were able to win it, similar to Dale Earnhardt, a driver who he, for all of his career, has drawn different criticisms and comparisons to. Now, another storyline will be fuel. Fuel saving has been a constant of superspeedway racing with the next-gen car, and it's both caused by the way the next-gen races, as well as the way that stages are set up in these races. And it's been hated more and more and more every year, and could nullify 2 hours of the event for fans where they're completely bored of guys going 75% and just running in 3 trains instead of 1 3x3 for 18 cars deep or whatever it might be. Now, another storyline, and it's not one that I think anyone really likes talking about heading into big events, regardless of sport, is Fox. Fox Sports is going to be airing its 22nd Daytona 500, and many have really railed on them for being complacent with their coverage after 25 years in the sport. Ads have caught flack as well. They've been called lazy, like having the Joey Logano one where it's basically a green screen next gen with a bunch of old moments. IndyCar marketing being great hasn't helped with those comparisons in any way, as IndyCar is Fox's new toy. And when you look at the downgrade of graphics in the Super Bowl, the biggest sporting event in America, well, it's not exactly inspiring hope for NASCAR fans or really any sport fans at that. Now, of course, when you're heading into the Daytona 500, you have to talk about speed weeks in total. There is a little bit more this year. There's an added practice session before qualifying. That way, there's not a bunch of boneheaded mistakes that could have been easily avoided had the cars been on track. But the big story of speed weeks or speed business days, as some are calling it, is why it's so short. On Wednesday night, there is Daytona 500 qualifying on FS1. The next night, there will be the duels, again, on FS1. Then the trucks race is going to be, again, on FS1 on Friday night. Saturday during the day, ARCA is on Big Fox, and then the CW has the Xfinity race that night. And, of course, the Daytona 500 is 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox, MRN, and SiriusXM Radio. Now, there are practices a few times littered in that week, but in general, it is a shell of its former self compared to what it was in the 2000s and the 90s. And people have noted that. That will be a huge storyline people cover as well. And I just say all this because if you're somebody who might be getting back into the sport after a while, you might miss a good deal of it if you don't watch between Wednesday and Sunday. Now, weather. This is one that is just difficult. NASCAR's coming into town, which means, of course, there is a threat of rain. Now, for the last week or two, people have watched the advanced forecast, and it's looked relatively well for Daytona. But if you watch a lot of different weather stuff on YouTube, like Ryan Hall and others, you'll notice that the chances of rain from Thursday through Sunday have been slowly increasing. As of now, the forecast does look all right. The highest percent of rain for many of them is 40, which isn't great, but that is increasing the closer we get to the event. It's something to watch, but unfortunately, NASCAR is coming to town, which means that more than likely, it will only completely increase. It's Florida, it's going to rain, we get that, but it's something to watch throughout Speed Week, days, whatever, because it is something that very realistically, like last year and many of the previous years, could ruin this weekend. And then in some bigger news that's much like the Super Bowl, President Donald Trump will be in attendance for this race. Now, for the people that are there, I tell you now, get there early. I was there in 2020, and the lines were insane getting in because of the added security. You're going to want to get there as early as possible to avoid a lot of headaches and hassle. But there you go. That is really, I think, everything you need to know heading into the 2025 Daytona 500. You also do need to know that we'll be live after every single race on this channel, and if there are rain delays or rainouts, we'll be live covering anything having to do with it, regardless of if it's the duels, truck race, the Xfinity race, or the Cup race. And we'll be live before and after the Daytona 500, after Daytona 500 qualifying on Eric Estepp's channel for NWP. We're going to be covering a lot, so stay tuned to this channel for all of it. And while you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great and fun NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support. And until next time, have a good one.